Welcome to the Recad training. Even though this form was labeled here under buyer's forms, the Recad form is the same for either buyers or sellers. So this form does not change either way. Once again, always check with your broker for additional forms and to see if they have anything special. Sometimes brokerages will have this on their own letterhead. They may have an additional way that they would like for you to present it. But in general, this is the same form that we all use, just may have different letterhead. So sometimes people feel really odd presenting the Recad form. Once again, as a reminder, we're always supposed to present the form at the earliest possible convenient time. And, one way that I have really felt comfortable in doing this is that I let folks know that this is not a legally binding form. Something I might say to them, if I'm sitting down with a buyer at a buyer's consultation, or if I'm sitting down with a seller at a seller's consultation, usually there's just a really easy way to kind of go into it. But sometimes I may just be showing somebody that called me from a listing, and I may need to go over it that way. So I'm not really sitting down at a table with all my different forms spread out. So one of the ways that I really has helped me throughout the years is I just reach out and say, hey, I just want to let you know that this is not a legally binding form. However, it is required by the Alabama Real Estate Commission. And basically, it just goes over the different kinds of professional relationships that you can enter into with the real estate. But once again, this form is just for informational purposes only, and it's not a legally binding form. And once I let them know that, it very much puts them at ease. They know that I'm just giving them information, and I find that they're much more receptive to really just kind of sit and listen to what I have to say. So once I've kind of breached that and said there's many different types of professional relationships that you can enter into with a real estate agent, and I'm just going to go over them with you now. So first of all is a single agent, and in a single agency relationship, I'm a real estate agent that just represents one party. And so I am working for your best interest and only your best interest. I can work for you on the buyer's side, or I can work for you on the seller's side. Either way, but in any event, if I work with you in a single agency relationship, I represent you and only you. I'm always out there for your best interest. Now, a sub-agent, that's not something we really see in this market very much, really rarely ever. It's mostly in the commercial business because some people think the sub-agency is like co-listing with somebody, but it's not. So a sub-agency, to give you an example, would be, let's say that an agent from brokerage A and an agent from brokerage B both represent the same side of the party. So a lot of times this will happen in, like I said, commercial transactions, but I have rarely seen it in residential. And as a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that they're voting to do away with this soon. So sub-agency is something that's probably even going to disappear soon. Now, limited consensual dual agency is another thing. So I may be representing somebody, like let's say that I already have a buyer, that I have a buyer's agency agreement signed with. We've been looking at homes, and they're like, you know what, I'm just not seeing anything that I like in the $200,000 to $300,000 range, okay? So I'm gonna up my search, and now I'm looking for something in the $300,000 to $350,000 range. And that makes me think, oh, wow, you know what? I actually have a listing. It's listed at $335,000, but it has everything that you're looking for. This may be the perfect home for you. In that case, and if that contract works out, I would be representing you as a limited consensual dual agency. So what's the difference there? Well, in that case, I can't work for you and only you in your best interest because I'm also representing the seller and I'm working for them. But this is what I can do. I can, and this comes down right here, I can provide services honestly and in good faith. I can exercise reasonable care and skill. I will keep confidential any information gained in confidence unless disclosure is required by law or duty to a client. And that would be like, letting people know if there were any material defects. We're legally obligated to disclose that. Or the information becomes public knowledge or disclosure is authorized in writing. I can present all written offers promptly to the seller, and I can answer all your questions completely and accurately. I can also provide information about properties, show properties, assist in making a written offer, or provide information on financing. So they may say, well, okay, you're kind of doing that anyways. What would the difference be if you're a limited consensual dual agent? So this is kind of how I would explain that. I could say to them, on this home that's $335,000, okay, let's just say this for example. I may know that you would be willing to go up to $340,000, but I would never disclose that. I'm going to write the offer as you tell me, and if you instruct me to do that for $332,000 or $335,000, that's what I will do. I will never disclose that you would be willing to go up for more than that. Also, if I represented the seller, they've listed this home for $335,000. Now, they may have told me at the beginning that they would go down to $320,000, but that's something I would never disclose because that is confidential information. I will take any offer that you give me, I will present it to them, and I will let them decide whether they are willing to take this offer or what kind of counter offer they would like to make, but I will never advise them. So that's the difference in that confidential information. Likewise, as a transaction broker. Once again, as a transaction broker, it's kind of the same thing as when you're a limited consensual dual agent, as far as you are liable for all these things. This is what we owe our clients, whether we represent them as a single agent or a transaction broker. These are always required of us. However, as a transaction broker, I'm not going to work in an advisory role. So if I'm representing a seller as a transaction broker, I can pull comps. I can provide the information about the properties. I can tell them how many homes have sold in their neighborhood at how much per square foot. And I can also tell them how many days those homes have been on the market. But what I'm not going to do is advise them. I'm not going to go in and say, well, if I were you, I would declutter. I would go ahead and paint this purple room a nice neutral color. I can't advise them in that way, but I can provide all of this other information. And sometimes people truly only want that basic information. So really those are kind of the big differences in how you represent somebody as an agency, limited consensual dual agency, or simply as a transaction broker. Once again, this just goes over a little bit more. It is highlighted at the top because, again, this is something that puts them a little bit more at ease. This is not a contract. This real estate brokerage services disclosure, or Recad, truly is for informational purposes only. Once again, we've already gone over these. These are the obligations that we have to all clients or customers, no matter what type of relationship that we have with them. And at the bottom of this, you sign as the licensee. You print your name here and you sign here and put the date. And we ask that the consumer, we can always write their name there. We ask that they sign and date. But again, this is acknowledgement for receipt purposes only. And I will say every now and then I will get somebody out there, typically they can be engineers in this market who don't want to sign. They're like, it's not legally binding, so why would I sign it? I'm like, you know what? I totally understand that. That's fine. You're not required to. And I'll just say, could you please put right down here, maybe I'll write in, consumer does not feel comfortable signing, and add your initials. Well, by having them initial there, I've technically gotten them to acknowledge that they've seen this. But, of course, our clients and customers are not held to the same type of criteria that we are by the Alabama Real Estate Commission, because they're not realtors. They're not members of the Alabama Real Estate Commission. So we just have to make sure that we present it. We do our very best to get there to sign it, and 99% of the time they will. But once again, this is just for informational purposes only. This is a consumer protection form so that people are just on the same page with what we provide. I will say that I love HAR in our organization because they have this amazing panel pamphlet that's already written up, and it goes into even more detail about all these different types of relationships that you can enter into. You can find this on Paragon and also on .loop if that's something that your brokerage uses. So if anybody has additional questions, say, hey, I tell you what, if you want even more information about this, let me go back to the office and I will email this pamphlet to you. It's super easy. And that is our Recad. Thank you.